Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff Mosher, Adam Caplan, and look, we are in the middle of July here, close to the middle of July. We're not yet 1 week from training camp, or we can't say training camp begins this week or next week, but we're getting a lot closer. Fewer podcasts left. Adam, I know everybody's still excited for our Stories podcast, and we're going to have that come out fairly soon, but we wanted to take this week after we've just completed our NFC East preview podcast series over the past 2 weeks. We wanted to get back to Eagles and really talk about some of the battles in training camp that are going to be coming up in about 16 days from now, depending on when you listen to this. So we're going to go through the offensive battles in this podcast, and then on Thursday morning we'll drop with a look at the defensive battles. And we're not just going to tell you who the contestants are. We're going to kind of size it up, give you what we've learned since, and then try to predict a little bit. But if you missed it, and I want to say big thanks to Greg Cosell, because I thought, we have him on all the time. He's going to be on our pregame show. People know who he is and what he does. But his breakdowns of all four teams, Adam, I thought was about as thorough of work that he's ever done with us, as far as like getting down to the nitty gritty of each team. Daniel Jones just on third down alone, and some of the stuff he talked about with the Eagles, these rookies was really fascinating.
Ooh. Yeah, I would tell you, of all the things we've done since you and I started this in the spring of 18, this is probably the Eagles one in particular. Because as we do this, we have certain questions and we get into a philosophical discussion, three of us. Mm-hmm. But we don't, yes, we have questions prepared and topics prepared, but we don't quite know where we're going to go sometimes. So something Greg will say will spark something, and you're going to hear. Now, let's get to the Eagles for a second before we start our show. He has some critical analysis, if you haven't heard it yet, of certain players. And I saw the stuff on social media. It wasn't that I wasn't expecting it. I knew it would be strong. But Greg strictly goes by what he sees on tape. And we didn't know some of the things. So I would say one of the best things about this is 75% of stuff he said I never heard him say before.
Right.
So, because we haven't we did a post-draft rookie analysis with him. Well, we did a post-draft analysis of the Eagles draft picks. But he went back and watched tape of all these guys. Mm-hmm. So there's so much we didn't know. And by the way, we also want to thank the Giant fans and Washington fans, because they learned stuff that they didn't know, because we covered, as Geoff said, all four teams, not just one.
Yeah, I think he did a great job, as you mentioned, of giving the fans players that you should watch for that aren't household names. For example, he really likes Darnay Holmes on the Giants, a nickel cornerback. And interestingly enough, Q&A were doing a recent they did their own NFC East stuff in their last two Q&As, and they mentioned, I remember Jason saying, there's a corner, because remember, Jason was a coach, an assistant wide receivers coach for the Eagles last year. And he was saying, man, there's a nickel corner on the Giants who I think is underrated. And that wound up being Darnay Holmes, who Greg was talking about. A guy like for Washington. I thought he made a really excellent point about why
Cameron Curl.
Not just Cameron Curl, but the safety, but also why William Jackson would be an upgrade over Ronald Darby, because they're both pretty good corners and fit certain styles of schemes. But he made it clear why William Jackson he felt would be better than Ronald Darby, who played well in that Washington scheme, certainly a lot better than he did here in Philadelphia. And then, of course, the pass rusher for the the Dallas, opposite Lawrence. I think it was Dorrance Armstrong, is it? Dorrance?
Well, it could be. Right. It could be Dorrance Armstrong. Yeah, it could be a bunch of them. But Greg talked about him, and we're just lucky to have him. And he'll be back with us this fall. We'll be making some show announcements in the not too distant future.
Correct.
Greg, we will tell you as a fact, will definitely be back with us, as will Q&A, and then we may be doing other player shows. We've got a whole bunch of concepts we're putting together, and then, by the way,
open up that bag too much. Can't reveal too much of the cat.
But
yet.
By the way, this show today, we want to thank. I think it was is it Chris Glover from our Facebook page.
Okay,
this was his idea because I put a post about 6 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Guys, let us know what kind of shows you want for training leading up to training camp, because we're going to be looking for ideas. And I mean, it seemed like a simple, easy idea to come up with, but we didn't think of it. So this is a great idea, and we're looking for ideas which you guys want to hear. And this was an easy one. This particular show we're going to do today. But if you've missed those training camp shows, because what you want to do, and we did these with Greg last year, these pre-training camp shows, but these are way more in depth. when the Eagles play these teams in the fall, you may harken back to these shows and go back and listen because every show's archived on YouTube and every podcast platform.
That's right. Make sure you're checking everything out. And if you haven't checked out our NFC East preview, it's all available, as Adam said, on our YouTube channel, on our podcast platform. I would, if you're on vacation, especially, take the time to listen to the other team's breakdown because, we joke around a little bit, Adam, that, like the Philadelphia can be kind of parochial or provincial, whatever you want. And we've seen what the Eagles have done this offseason. And a lot of people think that the Eagles have filled some important holes, like Eric Wilson at linebacker and Anthony Harris at safety, and they've drafted Devontae Smith. So you start to see things come together, and then you start to see that optimism that wasn't there in January start to peek back in. And I think the Eagles can be good and better than people say and compete for this division and probably better win the division. But then you kind of forget that every other team in the division has also spent the offseason trying to get better and making improvements and drafting players. And I think that you look at Giants and Washington more so than Dallas as two teams that really made some pretty decent moves that fit what they do, fit their identity to try to get better. So it's going to be a competitive division. I think people are having a difficult time trying to figure out who goes where. I know a lot of people got upset about a recent ranking. I think it was PFF. They did the rosters, right? And the Eagles finished 28th or 29th, which would make them, the third or fourth worst team in football. And people are free to disagree or agree with it. But I think when you saw the only team that I felt that was, I think they're better than Jacksonville from a roster standpoint. They had Jacksonville higher. They were the next highest team at 28 or 27, whatever it was. But I think you can make an argument for any other of the 25 or 26 teams being better than the Eagles, just as you can probably make an argument the Eagles might be better than, 12 or 13 of them, depending on how things go. Yeah, I didn't think it was intentionally disrespectful.
Yeah, no, look, I could tell you, it's funny you bring this up because I remember as we were doing the Giants show with Cosell last week, I'm like, you know what? After hearing Greg break this team down and the three of us going through discussions on what we know about the team, I know Daniel Jones, and Greg does a phenomenal job, but you put a really cool clip up of what Greg said about Daniel Jones on our Twitter feed. Mm-hmm. If Daniel Jones plays average football, I'm going to have to pick, if Daniel Jones is good training camp, looks like he's ready to have a breakout season, I'm probably going to pick the Giants to win the division because you hear Greg go over the roster, and you just talked about it. They were super aggressive in this offseason. Mm-hmm. They spent more free agent dollars, not only than any other team in the NFC East. They're in top 3 in free agent spending this year. I gotta pick them. But there are questions with Barkley coming back from the injury. Their offensive line, and Cosell makes such a funny point. It's so obviously simplistic, but so true. It's not that they haven't invested in the offensive line. These guys got to start playing well.
Of course. Absolutely. Absolutely true. Right? And of course, Andrew Thomas did start to play better by the second half. They had that offensive line coaching change, which apparently came with an altercation.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my God, I forgot about that. That's right.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Well, whatever it did, it seemed to work. It lit a fire. Thomas started to play better. Right. They'll get Nate Solder back. We'll see what happens with that. I do remember Jason Avant last week in Q&A saying that he felt that Daniel Jones was the type of quarterback the Giants could win with. He wasn't saying Super Bowl, just saying they can win games, they can compete, because he thinks that if you put enough around him and give him the protection, he'll be good. He said, look, he's not going to be Tom Brady. He's not going to be an elite, but he's good enough to win. I guess almost like how sometimes you talk about Alex Smith, a good enough quarterback at times where you can win a lot of games with, but probably not, left to be seen whether you can win the ultimate prize, the Super Bowl. But he felt that, like Greg said, that Daniel Jones was a little better than people give him credit for being. So we'll see. A lot to talk about, obviously, when the season starts and how competitive this division will or won't be. All I know is, Adam, if you pick the Giants, you're following a good trend in the fact that would be a different champion from the year before, and the NFC East still has not had a repeat champion since the Eagles in 2003 and 2004. That is now 17 years Ridiculous. Of a different winner every single year. So sorry, Washington, but the odds are stacked against you.
I'd love to know how that compares to other sports that the NFC East versus like the NL East in Major League Baseball. But anyway, also on our platforms. We dropped a live stream, which has now been posted on all of our platforms. We did a live stream last week.
Yep.
Yeah, we covered a lot of news and information because Geoff and I were talking privately for the last couple of weeks. We're like, man, I want to get back to doing news. Let's do this. And this one, and we took some of your questions as well, which we answered. Then, Geoff, the latest Q&A show. Give our listeners an update on what's on there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the next one will come out on Wednesday, but the last one they did some an NFC East preview, but they kind of saved Washington for this week. They went through the first three teams. They did talk about the Eagles. They talked about the upgrades. I thought Jason Avant made a really good point about what the Eagles did, and he said, look, they filled the holes just like we talked about, but this team, the Eagles, as you look at them now. Right. Still strong in the trenches. But as far as the defense, there's a lot of good role players, but not enough splash or flash type players. You have a lot of players who can hold it down, like Rodney McLeod can hold it down. Anthony Harris can hold it down. Eric Wilson can hold it down. Darius Slay and Fletcher Cox, he identified as your two splash players. But everybody else is you can hold it down type player, meaning like those are the type of players you need on your team, but you need elite talent around that to be the playmakers, and he felt like the Eagles did not have enough playmakers on both defense and I even think offensively yet to be determined to really when you compare them to other teams in the division and the NFL, which I thought was a fair point. The guys that we've talked about all year long that they brought in, your Eric Wilsons, your Anthony Harris, your Ryan Kerrigan, it was a splash player at one point, probably not the same type of player anymore. Still a good player, just not a Pro Bowl level player who's going to play that many, a whole game anymore. So that's what the Eagles look like to me. They look like a team that has some adequate to good talent, but probably behind several other teams in the league as far as having game-changing dynamic talent, especially on defense.
Oh, it's interesting. So I didn't know we were going this area, so I'm going to bring up something that I was told a couple of years ago. There was another NFC team, we'll call it west of the Mississippi, that told me privately, because they were doing a study on what makes a Super Bowl team. It was either 6 or 7 blue chip players to get to the Super Bowl. And their study going over 40 years. And now, again, it's subjective because what makes a blue chip player? Let's go on what Q&A are saying. Like, we'd have to go back to the Eagles 2017 team that what makes up a Super Bowl team. Well, this team said it was either 6 or 7 blue chip players. This is elite players, basically, typically, right?
Right.
If you go back, Wentz was absolutely an elite player. He was the best quarterback that season.
Yep.
Kelsey was elite. Now, Peters didn't play because he tore his ACL.
Right. Lane Johnson was elite.
Lane Johnson, yes. Brandon Brooks, elite.
Brandon Brooks. Mm-hmm.
Fletcher Cox, elite.
Yep.
I'd have to go through the rest of it of guys who played that season. Alshon Jeffrey was good that season. I wouldn't call him elite, but that's the thing as the Eagles go along here. You're going to have great players to get there. And quite frankly, right now, Geoff, off the top of your head, is do they have a great player on the roster? Is Brandon Brooks still great? He's coming off injuries. Is Fletcher Cox?
Right. No, it's a fair question. It's a fair question because we're talking about guys who were on the Super Bowl team and now we're 5 years later. And by the way, Zach Ertz on that Super Bowl team was emerging into an elite player.
Yeah.
He game-winning touchdown.
You know what? You might call him back because in terms of route running, getting open.
Yep.
There aren't in his heyday in 17 especially. And you know what he did in the Super Bowl? My goodness.
Right.
Name me another player that just gets open. I know he's not a great athlete, but Goddard's a much better athlete. But in terms of getting open and winning, very few better than him during the prime of his career.
Yeah. And I have to say, he's often forgotten in this discussion, but he was not an elite player, but he had some elite moments and some really good games when it really they needed it. Nigel Bradham had an unbelievable 2017 year. That Carolina Panthers game.
That's a little strong.
That's unbelievable in that I didn't expect that out of him.
I see what you mean. Yeah, you were like, wow, I didn't expect to be this good. Right.
Yeah, that Carolina game, he made every single third down stop. I think that game, he was just all over the place. So he was a very good linebacker that year for them. Got that nice contract. I don't know that Eric Wilson is even as good as Nigel Bradham. They're different types of linebackers.
Physically, right? Well,
physically. Yep.
Bradham's a tough guy. Physically, he was, he was a Jim Schwartz guy. That's why he was there. And it was as we've said throughout the show since we started in 18, when you look back at 17, everything went right. Everything went right. Every free agent move, guys were signed before that year, seemed to all of a sudden play great. It's just, you couldn't make it up. Everything seemed to go quite well that season.
That's absolutely true, and it was a great season for us as well. But Adam, our great seasons are way beyond us, at least athletically. We've retired a long time ago, but we are still winning because we use Deal Dash, the online shopping platform that's actually fun. I mean, it's competitive. Nick Sirianni would love Deal Dash because you got to win. You got to compete to win on Deal Dash. It's the longest running penny auction website and app around.
They should get a deal with him. They should contact his agent. They should. Now you bring that up. And by the way, listen to Greg Cosell's. I don't know which show it was, the Eagle show, training camp battle show, or whatever. The preview to training camp. Mm-hmm. But he talks about. I knew Greg was a very good high school basketball player and also played in college.
Mm-hmm.
But I forgot how good he was at baseball. It's like you look at Cosell, go, really, you were that good of an athlete? Yeah, because he's 6'4".
How about that? He's a tall dude. He's a big dude too.
Right, 6'4". Yeah, I mean, people forget he was Howard Cosell's nephew.
Right.
But Greg was an all-city athlete in baseball. How about that? Huh?
Yeah, all-city shortstop in Queens. Yeah. That's correct. Well, but now here, going back to Deal Dash, you can't win anything on Deal Dash going rock, paper, scissors, right? But you can still be competitive. And listen, it's some cases it's like too good to be true when you see these prices. We've seen a car go for $900 and brand new TV for less than $2. It's unbelievable what you can get at these prices on Deal Dash. So don't be a loser. Stop paying full retail price for things you want and get on Deal Dash. You can go to dealdash.com or download the app. And when you register, use the promo code ITB for a special offer for some bonus free bids. You just enter ITB, get your special bonus free bids and start bidding right away. It's great competition. Nick Sirianni, again, would very much love this style of competition. All right, let's get into our main topic, which is competition. It's training camp competition. We're going to take a look at the offensive competition. Now, we're not going to go through every position, Adam, because, for example, starting quarterback, there's no competition here. We know that Jalen Hurts is competing against himself, right, to be able to be the starter beyond 2021. But he's not competing against Nick Mullins and Joe Flacco out there. He is the starter. I mean, he'd have to really be. Do you think if he had even remember Kevin Cobb had a really bad training camp in 2010, but he still started. I mean, he only got about a half of a game of football.
Well, they had to because remember he signed a 1-year deal for $10 million.
Yeah,
he had to start back then. That was a massive deal coming out of. It was actually a year before the lockout, but
right.
They traded him the next year in the coming out of lockout. But he had to be the starter.
Mm-hmm.
It was just Cobb never made it because he developed some really bad habits. But when you look at this situation, the Eagles want to see if Hurts could be the guy past the season. I mean, let's call it like it is. It's exactly what's going on. No matter what they say, we know what's going on. Fans know.
Yeah, it's fair to say I would think he has a long leash. Now, I mean, if they start off 1-8, I don't know, but I'm saying like he's not going to get pulled at half of game 3 if he's playing poorly. I would think. I don't know. He shouldn't. He shouldn't.
I mean, he's only started for. Listen, Greg Cosell's commentary, you could hear it. His analysis is very strong.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't heard it, I don't want to give it away, but I'm certainly going to look at that and probably re-listen to that show because I want to remember this when I'm at training camp and watch him in the preseason. Sort of things to look at which need to be improved and some of the traits that Greg liked about his skill set. But Nick Mullins, I want to talk about him because I didn't know this until I got the details. I forgot to mention this when I got them, but I'll mention it now.
Okay.
I'm not saying that, and there's no battle here, but I'm not saying they'll keep 3 quarterbacks. But folks, I didn't know this. They fully guaranteed $200,000 of his salary of $970,000.
That's weird. That's strange. Who were they competing against? Was there another?
That was my response. I totally screwed up by not mentioning this when I got the contract details a couple of days after. But for whatever stupid reason, I forgot to bring it up. But so actually, here's his contract. We might as well go through this real quick.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Base $920,000, $200,000 fully guaranteed at signing. As Geoff just said, why the hell? Who are they competing against? I understand if you stacked up the best available quarterbacks on the street of guys who've played in the league. We're not kind of Kaepernick because he hadn't been in the league in several years.
Mm-hmm.
So he wasn't in consideration for the Eagles here. But Mullins versus anybody else, we had said the reason why we thought that he was their number one guy is because of this timing-based offense that they're going to run. I get it. The Niners run an old-school West Coast offense. And it's kind of like, believe it or not, Nate Sudfeld got $100,000 fully guaranteed at signing. I don't know why the Niners did that. Who the hell were they competing against? I just don't understand it. Maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah, all I know is it's a heck of a world when you can be unemployed one day and then the next day you sign a piece of paper that guarantees that no matter what happens to you, you are going to make $200,000 that year. That's pretty damn good. Wish I could sign something.
On it. Every Eagles contract has offset language on it.
Well, even if it's offset because
still
somebody else gave you money, so he's getting $200,000. Yeah,
he's still making $200,000. You bring up a fair point. The same thing I thought. Now he also has a $50,000 roster bonus if he gets it if he's active week one.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's such little money from an NFL standpoint. I'll take it
from an NFL standpoint,
right? But if he's active game one, he gets $50,000. I'm gonna start looking at this thing. I didn't think he had a prayer of making it, but contracts tell a story. I do wonder why they gave him $200,000 again. Now cutting him and owing him $200,000, big deal, right? Against the cap, it's negligible. It doesn't really matter. But I'm still surprised that they gave him $200,000. So I do wonder if he tears it up, whether they would cut him or not.
Now, someone's going to listen to this and say, well, maybe the conspiracy theorist is going to say, well, maybe then he can push Joe Flacco out the door. But do not forget that Joe Flacco got guaranteed money as well. So, yeah, I mean, they're just – I agree with you. No, and no. All right, but now it does open up the door for them to maybe keep 3 quarterbacks if that's how they want to do it.
Just going to keep an eye on it. I didn't think this would be even worth looking at or discussing, but it slipped my mind about his contract details, and I remember thinking, like, wait, why would they do this? As you just said, like, okay, we'll keep an eye on that in training camp.
Yeah, I mean, God, now that you think about it, if they were to waive him at the end of camp like we kind of thought they would do, then they just paid him $200,000 to be a camp arm.
He's not vested. Yeah, because
somebody would claim him because he's a quarterback, you would think.
Well, yeah, because remember, he was not tenured as a restricted free agent, but when you look at the available quarterbacks here, right, in free agency, it's a motley crew. In fact, as we look at my Excel file here, you got RG3, who might be a broadcaster, not come back. The Eagles weren't interested in him. Mm-hmm. Sean Mannion, who the guy I believe they had interest in, we'd reported it first.
Right.
Josh McCown is not retired as of yet that we know of. But that's it. Matt Barkley's not coming back here. Brett Hundley's not coming here. And that's it.
Man, there was a time, I'm not afraid to admit it. There was a time I thought Brett Hundley was going to be a player in this league. I like Brett Hundley. I thought he was going to be good.
Never made. I'll say this: he's made it as a backup. He keeps getting jobs, but
even I mean, when you're a journeyman backup, I mean, you're expendable.
Did he leave school early? I do wonder because he was super duper not ready when he was drafted by the Packers.
Yes, he went to UCLA, right?
Yeah, I just remember talking to them at the time. And they were like, "Man, he's just a ways away from being ready," and it turned out to be true. He just never. I mean, he was a backup for a while, but he just never even no one ever considered him. You know what? We saw enough of him as preseason tape. Let's bring him in and compete for a starting job. There was never any of that going somewhere else.
Yeah. All right. So as we just determined, this job is Jalen Hurts's for 2021, barring any injuries. There is competition at running back, not for the number 1 running back, Miles Sanders, but there is competition from basically 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. However many the Eagles wind up taking. And I like this competition, Adam, because I feel like the Eagles shouldn't and probably aren't married to a specific number. They would love to be able to keep players if these players merit being kept, if you know what I'm saying. Some teams will only want to go 4 or 5, but you have some good names here. Jordan Howard, Kerryon Johnson, Kenny Gainwell, the rookie, Boston Scott, who has done a good job as a change-up back for the Eagles. That's 4 guys right there, and they all bring a little bit something different to the table. And the only one that we know is we can say, well, I can't even say he's a 5th-round pick, so I can't say Kenny Gainwell is definitely on the team, but I got a really good feeling about him as opposed to some other, 4th and 5th rounders of the past at that position that they've taken, at least about making the team as a rookie.
All right, so
go ahead. No, so I was going to say, but it really boils down to this veteran challenge between Jordan Howard and Kerryon Johnson.
Well, okay.
With
Teams,
Boston Scott thrown in there. Go ahead.
right. It's rare, extremely rare for a team to keep 5 backs. Typically, it's because of special teams. They don't want to make a guy available who's a special teams demon.
Agree.
You know, it's kind of like Jackie Slater's son with the Patriots, who's a receiver.
Matthew Slater, yes.
Right. One of the best special teams players in really in NFL history. Just a phenomenal special teams player. He's technically a receiver, but now doesn't play receiver.
Right.
You're not going to keep 5 running backs, barring like Brandon Bolden. The reason why he's their 5th running back sometimes is A, he can play running back, but B, he's a really good special teams player that keeps coming back because they're not keeping 5 backs. It'd either be 3 or 4. I can't answer. I know some people would ask us, hey, do you know what the coaches want? It's not about what the coaches want. It's what the front office, they make the calls the coaches don't.
Mm-hmm.
Look, they'll talk to them, hey, what kind of rotation do you want? They'll talk to Jamal Singleton in terms of rotations, assuming he's going to run the rotation like Deuce Staley did. They'll talk to him and ask him, hey, what are you thinking here? But in the end, it's going to be the front office's decision. So I agree with your assessment of Gainwell. He's got special teams kickoff return ability. He's unlike anybody they had. I don't know that they had such a super high grade on him. I think it's somewhere where he went. Mm-hmm. It's like most teams. If he would have played last season, he wouldn't get out of the 3rd round. He didn't play last season. He opted out. And you can't draft a guy as high as the 3rd round based on 1 year of production. You just get, though it was a monster, just crazy production in 2019. You can't do that.
Right.
But, again, I agree with you. I think he'll be on the team. So it's Sanders and Gainwell are 2.
Mm-hmm.
Then for potentially 3rd or 4th spot, I'm putting Jordan Howard on there. Why? He's been a starting running back. He's bigger, bigger physically from a girth or size standpoint than Kerryon Johnson. Kerryon Johnson is 5'11". And by the way, from our understanding, is he's somewhere around 210 pounds. I think when he left the Lions, he was around that weight. So he's not 220 if people are saying he's not anywhere close to it. So we'll have to see, but he's a supreme pass protector, as we're told by line source. That would give him a little bit of juice over Boston Scott and Jordan Howard. So in the end, I think it's going to be Sanders, Gainwell, Howard. Now the question is, as you were setting it up, do they keep a 4th back, Boston Scott versus Kerryon Johnson? Training camp will tell the story.
Well, that's where, I think you always have to have in mind that even when you keep a rookie who's impressive in training camp, he's still a rookie, and you have to have a somewhat of a not a doubt, but you have to safeguard yourself against this guy not being ready when the lights come on. So some of the things that Gainwell can do, catching the ball and special teams, Boston Scott does. Now, he's not as electric and shifty as Gainwell was in college, but he can do it. And so I wonder if you keep Boston as a 4th running back for that reason. You don't usually keep guys for insurance, but it's not bad to have 4 running backs, and especially if your 4th has played in the NFL and can bring you multiple dimensions the way he can. So I think that'll be incumbent, though. They're not going to just keep Boston to keep him. He has to show up and have a good camp. I want to get back to what you said about Jordan Howard versus Kerryon Johnson, though, because I'm inclined to agree with you that the Eagles seem to see something in Jordan Howard that maybe the rest of the league does not. They keep bringing him back. They give him a chance. He's here to compete. I do feel like they like him and that he knows, the team. But I would have to say, I think from a talent standpoint, if all things are considered equal and healthy and everybody's conditioned and in good shape, that Kerryon Johnson's a more talented running back. So is it safe for us to say that if Jordan Howard wins out, it's because Kerryon either didn't stay healthy, wasn't in the best shape, or just really lost something along the way from the injuries that he's had? Because I feel like Kerryon is the better overall player.
Well, you can look at it this way, right? Boston Scott does not have Johnson's size or Howard's size.
Mm-hmm.
Johnson is the best pass protector. You can make the case that, and you were comparing Howard versus Johnson. You can make the case to keep both of those with Gainwell and Sanders. There's your 4, and send Boston Scott's the odd man out. If I had a wager on this thing, not we're betting on this, but I would think Boston Scott's the odd man out. You have a new coaching staff. They don't know any of these players. They weren't here. Mm-hmm. For the obviously Stoughton was, but we're talking about the offensive coordinator, the head coach, the new running backs coach. Although Singleton, as he said in his press conference or his little media session, that he was familiar with a lot of these guys because he did that. He was at their pro day. He did a pre-draft tape, so he knows them based on skill set. But each guy seems to bring something different. It's very, very unique. This is probably one of the better running back groups they've had in I don't know how long.
Yeah,
because they all bring something different. But
I guess the point I was trying to make was maybe Jordan Howard is Jordan Howard. I feel like we know what he is. If Kerryon Johnson doesn't win or doesn't isn't higher, it's because he didn't show the Eagles something they wanted to see more so than that Jordan Howard showed them something that they were not expecting. Like Jordan Howard really came to play. I think Jordan Howard's good at what he does, and I don't know that there's a whole lot of variance to it. I know he had a terrible year in Miami, and I don't know what went on there. He's just an okay back to begin with.
Chan Gailey wanted him off the roster. I don't say as soon as they got him that they the guy's making $5 million a year, and I know that obviously the second year didn't have guaranteed money, but they're paying him $5 million last year, and he had seen enough after. Now my understanding is he didn't show up in great shape there.
Mm-hmm.
He made him a goal line back after a couple weeks in training camp.
Mm-hmm.
Now, our understanding is he showed up to their OTAs, Eagles OTAs, in decent shape for him. So that's a good sign. But Kerryon Johnson, you're right, he's a more gifted player. The guy was a second-round pick.
Right. Now, so that makes me think that if he doesn't make it, it's because he lost it more than Jordan Howard won it. If that may sound unfair or a slight. I don't mean it to be, but yeah.
No, that's so it's either going to be 3 or 4. Training camp will tell the story. They each bring something different. Kerryon Johnson, he's had multiple knee injuries in his career. He's not the same guy. He wore a sleeve last season, I'm told, on whatever knee that was that had issues. And he's clearly not the same player. Now, can he regain it of having no offseason issues? We'll see. We won't know until we get there.
There you go. All right, you mentioned making a wager. Now's a good time to remind everybody to download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use that promo code ITB when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 in free credits. That's right. You turn $1 into $100 in free credits just using that promo code ITB when you sign up for the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app. All right, let's move on to our next competition, and that's at wide receiver. And this is going to be phenomenal. It's going to be one of the major storylines of camp. Again, I think we have a good feel for 3 guys who are locks to make the team. That's Devontae Smith, it's Jalen Reagor, and Travis Fulgham. And then after that, it's a nice blender of different. And you and I have said we think Greg Ward's going to make it. He'll be.
Oh, he's not going anywhere.
He's probably not going anywhere.
And listen to Greg Cosell's breakdown of Ward. It was pretty strong. But no, the issue for the top 3 guys is what's the rotation? We don't know.
Right.
This is a battle between Smith, Reagor, and Fulgham in terms of we need to find out more about what the rotation is going to be. That's to me, is this going to be more of a 12 personnel team? 11? We don't know that. That's enough. There is you and I have said throughout this offseason, one of the better things about this new coaching staff and roster is we actually have jobs open where there's going to be a lot of mystery. We don't know what the rotation is. We knew who the top 3 receivers are, Smith, Reagor, and Fulgham. We don't know what the rotation is going to be. And it's our sense is they're not worrying about who's the X and the Z. I don't sense that matters to this coaching staff. It's who are our 2 outside receivers. We know who's going to play in the slot. We know Ward will play in the slot, obviously, because he can't play on the outside. Reagor's going to play inside out, outside in, whatever. Fulgham, as Greg Cosell told us, played slot last year, some slot. Smith could be lined up anywhere. That's the great thing. They've got positional versatility, but we don't know who's going to play majority of the snaps on the outside yet. We're not going to know that until we get through training camp.
Right. So that's 4 guys there. You can feel pretty good about making that. Very good about making this team.
Oh, they're all definitely. Yeah.
So the 5th spot, and maybe you keep 6. And again, this is an opportunity for wide receivers to try to convince the coaching staff to keep 6. They don't need to keep 6, but if you have 2 really good special teamers, you might do it. I don't know that they do. That's where J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, I feel, is on the outside looking in because they've got better talent around them now, and he does not, or at least has not yet, really established himself as anything on special teams. So where is there an opportunity for Arcega-Whiteside to make it when you compare him to a Quez Watkins or a John Hightower or who's the kid, the rookie for Osborne, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be difficult for these guys. And every single one of these guys brings something a little bit different to the table.
Well, the 5th receiver job, we know the top 4 are.
Mm-hmm.
That much is set. We just don't know what the rotation is going to be, and that's something we're going to have to see. That's definitely a battle on the outside. As we said, how Smith, Rager, and Fulgham are going to be rotated. But the fifth receiver job, which are both for outside positions, is Hightower versus Watkins versus Arcega-Whiteside. They're going to keep, barring a surprise, they're going to keep 5 receivers, not 6. Now, as you said, for them to keep 6, it would almost have to be an extraordinary situation where Osmond shocks us. I was surprised that they signed him, quite frankly, because he doesn't run all that well. Nothing special about him. Obviously, somebody liked him on their personnel staff. I
forgot to mention, by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I forgot to mention that they did Kevin Walker from Jacksonville.
Michael Walker, Michael Walker. Now, is he in a battle? I'm guessing Dave Caldwell, who's sort of a consultant for the Eagles, because he had him with Jacksonville last season. Maybe he had something to do with it. You'd have to assume that. But I don't know. He's battling. He's just battling to get to the end of August, maybe, because they have this year the NFL's got 3 cutdowns. It's kind of weird, but I mean,
love
technically he's Yeah, do you like it?
I love it because they're not cutting down on Labor Day weekend. We can actually
the big one, right?
We can enjoy our Labor Day Sunday and not be at the phone, on with agents, on with team guys.
I'll be doing something else. Yeah, that'll be another story for another time on that weekend. But in the end, to me, if they don't add a veteran, and I'm kind of surprised that they haven't done that yet, and I'm not saying that they will. But if they don't add a veteran, I'm going to pick Watkins to be the 5th receiver. I mean, Hightower, I've said all offseason, I'll continue to say it. I don't see him on this roster. We've kind of outlined his issues since last season. He had a relatively solid preseason training camp. Definitely earned a roster spot. Played a lot early on because of Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson's injuries.
Yep.
And Rager's injuries as well.
The kid had a chance.
Yeah.
He showed
he was given an opportunity.
Open on certain routes, and he dropped some passes.
He blew it. Blow it, and he needs to grow up a little bit, mature. That's why I've said throughout this, they really could use a veteran to show him the ropes.
Right.
Smith probably. Well, not that he's a veteran; he's a rookie, but he's a Nick Saban player. There's just something about these guys. They're so serious about their job. He's going to help their room, but they still can use a veteran. So to move this along here, if they don't sign a veteran, I got Hightower off. I got Watkins making his their 5th.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. Someone hit us up on YouTube comment. I forget what it was, and he keeps asking. He was asking us why we're making such a big deal about one play Watkins made last year against Arizona, and not the fact that Hightower was on the field a lot more and showed the ability to get open down the field. And for the person who asked that, you're clearly not listening to our podcast. We are basically telling you this is not just about on-field performance. It's about maturity. It's about what the coaches and the team are seeing on a day-to-day basis, because they are the ones who are with these guys all of a sudden. What we're reporting is what we're hearing, is that there are certain things that we've seen ourselves that we know, but just the maturity, the taking this business very seriously, having to grow up, and we've talked about it. It's an issue. It's been an issue, and so we're not making Quez Watkins out to be Jerry Rice because he made one splash play.
I never even talked about. I don't know what that. I number one, I forgot about that play. B, I've never mentioned it, so I don't know where that's coming from.
Yeah, it's not about that one play, right? That's all I'm trying to say. It's not about that. So it's about what we've reported all along.
And by the way, Watkins, if he didn't have maturity issues coming into last year's draft, he would have been
right.
Yeah, I would tell you that the grades that I got from other teams with this player were 3rd or 4th round grades on talent. Everything else, that's why he went in the 6th round.
What odds do you give Arcega-Whiteside of making this team?
Very small. He's on the outside looking out. Will he go to training camp? Yes. He's got to earn it. No, the Eagles would love him to blow it up in training camp. 3rd year, maturity. He got stronger physically. Let's say he worked on his route running. Let's say I haven't heard much about him in the offseason. He's one player I haven't heard much about. But let's say he has this great preseason, which no one was expecting. He's on the team. He's earned it. Great. They would love nothing better for him to make the team. He ain't. So to answer your question, Geoff, he's not making it based on being a 2nd round pick. That's over now. He's got to earn it, from my understanding.
Right. What is it? 12 catches in 2 years
I don't know.
Arcega-Whiteside. It's either 12
Seems
or 13.
Like nothing. Right?
Yeah,
he made that one nice catch his rookie season where he's standing at like midfield. I can't remember exactly the circle. It might have been against Detroit or something.
Right.
But it's really funny. and I hate to bring this up, but I'm bringing it up because our mouth we almost dropped it. We almost fainted when we heard this. You and I are at the combine. I love this story. You and I are at the combine 2 years ago together. We were at the Marriott, and I see this guy in front of us. This is from this one team, and either you or I asked this guy. I said, "Hey, by the way, what did you have on JJ Arcega-Whiteside?" And this guy went off. He goes, "Oh, we had a priority free agent," and we're like, "What?" We said, "Could you repeat that again?" He goes, "Oh yeah, we didn't think he could run. Our analytics group had a much higher grade." We were laughing. Oh, so did the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
And we are like, I wish I could have taped it. And he was going through 5 minutes how this guy goes, "Oh my God, we like the kid personally. He's a good kid. And he came from Stanford," but he goes, "Oh man, all he could do is contested catches." He goes, "That's just not enough to put him in the first 4 rounds." I'm like, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and I'll never forget
the corners of the Pac-12 are not as necessarily as known for being shutdown guys as in the NFL.
And the thing is about this Arcega-Whiteside, he isn't even helping in the red zone. That's where we thought after the draft, we said at the very least he's going to help the Eagles in the red zone. He hasn't even done that.
No, he just hasn't helped them at all. I mean, everyone, it's weird. I'd say his last 3 catches are all probably like 20, 30-yard catches, and they've been very intermittent here and there, and he makes a catch, and you're like, wow, this guy can catch the ball a little bit, but then he disappears for 5 or 6 games, and then you don't see it again.
Right, and there's been no talk about – I know someone had asked us about playing tight end. There's been no talk of that. I don't think he moves well enough.
That's right. Thanks for bringing that up. I meant to ask you that.
Yeah, I monitored it, and I think the Eagles have reached their limit on for players playing other positions.
Yeah.
Oh, we had Tyree Jackson on Sears. I got to tell you.
I meant to ask you. Yeah.
He was awesome. His story and his willingness to understand that he'll never make it a quarterback. Mm-hmm. Logan Thomas, if Logan Thomas was willing to play tight end super early in his career, he might be a top 10 tight end by now. Now, he's been a great story, great kid.
Right. Did Tyree mention Logan Thomas? Did he
did.
He know him, talk to him?
He studied it. I can't remember if my partner on NFL Radio, Zig Fracassi, asked him, but
okay,
he just talked about his journey and his willingness to do it early and understanding the challenge of it. And he knows a Logan Thomas story. He's well aware of it because obviously, if you're studying, if you're Tyree Jackson, you have to know about this because he's a quarterback who's made it as a tight end. He's really the only one that I know of who's been able to do it. Maybe there are others, but I can't remember others. But this is what an incredible story Logan Thomas has been. What a great season he had. The Eagles know him pretty well.
10 touchdowns, Adam. I mean, that was pretty good.
Unbelievable. Yeah. One of them, he just looked around and Eagles didn't cover him. So,
that was one of the easier ones.
So I mean, I just love his story. And, look, he's a long-term project. I fully do not expect him to make the team. I'd be shocked if he made it.
Mm-hmm.
Certain things would have to happen where, again, you don't want to waive him and you're so blown away. And what would have to happen is the preseason tape would be so dynamic. You're, oh, my goodness, we waive him. So I don't team claim him because that tape gets out. And by the way, the reporters will get better access to training camp this year, and they'll see it. Reporters don't shut up when they see a training camp. They're right about it. That's their job.
There you go.
Fans love that stuff, right? So
definitely. There you go. All right, so that closes the book on the wide receiver battle. We'll get into the offensive line in a second. Want to tell our friends, make sure you're reading PHLSportsNation.com. They are enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of our Philadelphia sports teams. Got to go check them out. They are for the fan, by the fan. That's their motto. You can find their work on Twitter at PHL Sports Nation or right at their home website, PHLSportsNation.com. And now we will pause real quick for another word from our great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. All right, if you happen to stop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You'll get an even better deal because, by the way, got it like that.
Yeah, by the way, I just noticed this the last time that I went to Sky Motor Cars. In fact, I need to go back there again. There's a driving range right around the corner from Sky. So what I'm going to do is, because I've got the, in a couple of days, I've got the Mid-Penn Bank golf tournament. I'm so bad at golf. But I need to go to the driving range. And so so this is another reason to go to Sky. Literally right around the corner, you can't miss it, is a driving range. And it's a pretty good one, by the way. I've been there a couple times in Westchester off of 202.
Yeah.
And so you should go up there, man. It's their customer service. Before I knew Brett Shoulder, the owner, I'd gone in there a couple times, and then my wife and I had 2 transactions, and I trust them. And I read a deal rater. I'm not joking. I took a couple hours a couple years ago when we were doing a deal with them because I didn't know these people. I'm like, I want to know if I could trust them. And these reviews were so positive. I'm like, these might be the best reviews I've ever read about anything.
I haven't heard a bad thing yet. I mean, that a bunch of Eagles got cars with them, so that they got to be pretty good.
Carson Wentz had a deal with them, and I think he still does.
Avante Maddox had one.
Yeah, Avante. They've known Sheldon Brown for years.
Sheldon, yep. Somebody else. Yeah. Oh, Quentin Michael said he knows.
Q knows him. Yeah, Q knows him. Yeah, Q knows him. So it's they do a phenomenal job, and they're very, very fair. The negotiation with Brett was very, very fair. I thought it was just did a great job. And my wife and I got done. We actually had 2 transactions with them. We were like, fine, appreciate your help. And then the other thing is now, before we move on here, I don't know if most people know this, but it's actually true. Car dealers now are trying to get cars because of this crazy thing with the microchip through the pandemic. So they need cars. So if you're looking to sell a car, not just buy one, if you're looking to sell a car like we did, we actually sold 2 cars through Sky Motors. They're your people because they're looking to buy cars. Go on their website, skymotors.com, skymotorcars.com, skymotorcars.com. If you want a car, and also you could call them, and they do an incredible internet business.
Oh, they do. Absolutely. And again, please make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. All right, let's talk about the offensive line. There's obviously the biggest battle of the entire camp is going to be on offensive line at the most important position in offense other than quarterback, which is left tackle. We got Jordan Mailata versus Andre Dillard. And honestly, this thing is like it's almost like I don't want to be over dramatic and be like a pay-per-view heavyweight fight, but it has everything that you want because it's not just like one guy. I think this is the perfect type of battle, Adam, because they're both good at different things, and you're going to find out if each one was able to improve on what they needed to improve at, and also what the coaching staff will value more than the other. I mean, there's other variables involved here, but this is basically Andre Dillard, who has beautiful feet and is a good pass protector against a finesse pass protector against a speed rusher, versus Jordan Mailata, who is just enormous and massive and will stop your bull rush in its tracks and can drive you backward. So the question is, can Dillard show that he's tougher and have that nastiness to him and be able to handle that bull rush? And can Mailata show that he can handle the speed guys, that he's not too big for the position, and that he can capitalize on what he was able to do last year? I mean, this has you do the tail of the tape here, Adam. You got check marks going everywhere.
It's funny. If you listen to our live stream from last week, we dropped a nugget on Mailata's weight. I mean, just in terms of what they want him at. They want him somewhere in the 370s-ish range. He's one of these rare human beings, and he's 6'8". He doesn't look 6'8" when I've seen him up close, but he is literally 6'8". He's one of these rare human beings that you could be 375, 380 and not look it. And actually, if you tell a lineman that they have to be in the 370s range, obviously he was more than that in their offseason. And it's okay. Like, you could carry that weight and handle it. So, and his body fat apparently percentage is pretty good. It's remarkable when you talk about tails of the tape. And then Dillard is the better athlete of the group, although Mailata is a pretty amazing athlete, a former rugby player.
Yeah.
This is just what you know this history of this team better than I did as a beat reporter. When is the last time they had this one actually I can answer. It was Jason Peters all the time, so there was never a battle.
Yeah.
But maybe you can remember. Maybe
I'll tell you, when Jason Peters got hurt, there was this kind of weird battle between what was his name? King Dunlop and Demetrius Bell.
Carl Malone's son. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know how you would describe it, but I don't think they have a relationship. Yeah. But that was, I mean, it's been quite a while. When Chip Kelly was here. Yeah, if Jason Peters, who was before, I guess, Trey, I went really from Trey to Jason Peters, right? They made the trade a year after they got that Trey went down to Jacksonville. So it really hasn't been much of a left tackle battle. I can't really think of one.
Well, and then Big V took over. Big V, I was just going to say Big V took over for Peters when Peters tore his Achilles. And was it
right?
Was it ACL or Achilles? Was it ACL in 17? I forget.
It was an ACL in 2017.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think the question you ask, Adam, is let's put Andre Dillard under the microscope. There's an expression in football, well, in life, that zebras don't shed their stripes, right? I mean, you are who you are at the end of the day. And Andre Dillard, for all of his college career and most of his professional career, has been a finesse left tackle with dancing bear type left feet, but not very tough physically, and not that guy who's going to drive you back and has struggled against bull rushers. We saw that. He struggled when you put him on the right side. Saw that. He came back this offseason saying that he's ready to go. He said all the right things. He said he's mentally tougher. He's physically tougher. He's stronger. I believe you can get stronger. I've seen that.
Oh yeah,
but
sure.
I mean that's not in question. But can you become physically and mentally, football wise, tougher? We're about to find out if that's true. The last time I remember an Eagles offensive lineman, left tackle, that had that same kind of stigma around him was Winston Justice. You know, he had the very bad game against the Giants when he had to fill in for Trey Thomas. He was a guy who was gifted physically, but was said to lack that physical toughness, that barbaric attitude. Now, what happened with Winston is he was able to move to right tackle in 2009 and start 16 games and played fairly well. He played well enough there. Was he ever great? No, but he was good enough to get an extension. Then he played 13 games and he struggled the next year, and then he had a knee injury, and that was pretty much it for Winston Justice. So I guess that's my way of saying with Andre Dillard, I believe he's ready to compete more, but I have to question whether he can completely change the mindset and be that nasty, physical, tough, like Runyon-esque guy that the Eagles would like him to be.
That's hard tough. If you're not like that, if you're more of a finesse player, I just don't know. Now, I and I know this is ridiculous to say this, but I did really like his press conference. I typically don't comment on these things. They're just words sometimes, but he seemed to be fired up.
Right.
Look, here's the good thing. Both Mailata and Dillard know this is an open competition. No one's been given the job here. We've said all along that Mailata is a favorite, and that's true, but it doesn't mean he's going to win it. Mailata's got to beat Dillard out. And here's the thing. It's going to be Jeff Stoutland's call. They're not going to get involved in this. The front office will not. They're not going to tell him what to do. They have too much respect for this guy. You know how high regard the fans do as well. I mean, Stoutland could walk on water in that building. Yeah. Even the new staff knows how special this guy is. Mm-hmm. And he had a hand in both guys. Mailata was at, as I understand it, he was at Mailata's, you want to call it like pro day. Not a lot of teams were there, but he was there. And Dillard is a guy that he wanted. So we'll see. It's an open competition. My money's on Mailata. But it would be great for the Eagles' sake if it was so hard to decide at the end of August that it went down to that third preseason game, or because they only have 3, or it's so tough, like it goes down to the end of training camp plus the extra week, because the 4th week of the preseason we don't have a preseason game; it's just going to be practices. Mm-hmm. It would be great if it went down to that. The competition's so good it went down. That is the pie in the sky one, but we'll see if that happens.
Part of me thinks if I were the coaches, right, and I really want to test the guy's, mental wherewithal, and hold him to what he said, he goes out there and has a good day on the first team, put him on the second team the next day. See if that, his attitude changes. If he's upset about it. If he sulks, if he wonders why after a good day he's on second team and he doesn't block as well, or he gets run over a little bit, then you kind of find out what a guy's made of. But in general, that could be just games anyway. I mean, the tape will tell who's really fit most for this kind. And one thing we have not considered that I think we should is the fact that whoever wins, you'll be excited for, but it may not be the best situation. Mailata played well last year. I don't want to take away from it, but he was not perfect. He gave up sacks. I mean, he's got still got a ways to go.
Yeah, Greg does a great job. He broke down the final 4 games of the Eagles season. Mailata is just, it's one of these situations with all 32 teams that you just couldn't make up. Guy never put a helmet on until spring of 18. Mm-hmm. Didn't know anything about American football other than what he watched on television. And being in his OTAs in 18, I was just laughing. I was like, if this dude figures it out, oh, my goodness gracious, because he didn't know what he was doing. And then I remember in 19, his camp, he didn't quite understand that you're not supposed to be physical in OTAs. You're not supposed to push anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't. Maybe he just didn't understand, what he was allowed to do. He knew, but it had to register because he's new to football. This kid's a super freak. We'll see, but Dillard's a pretty special athlete. This is going to be an interesting competition. This is it is the training camp battle. It's not even close between anything else in this room.
Not even close. Not even close. I agree. It's good. That'll be the thing that I'm sure you and I will be looking at most when we're down there.
And the thing is, and Cosell talks about this. He's not an offensive line guy, but he knows what he's looking at. You and I are we're 1/100th of Greg's knowledge of looking at offensive linemen, even that position.
Right.
I'll do my best, but obviously we'll be checking with sources and finding out who's doing best there. But the thing is, though, but the great for the fans is you can watch it you can see all the preseason games, all three. You'll be able to slow it down by the way, on Verizon Fios. They have incredible slow motion. I watch NBA playoffs with it, tennis with it, Phillies with it. Want to see how the ball comes off the player's bat. The Eagles, the Phillies last week against the Cubs, they had a slew of home runs. In Wrigley Field, the ball carries. It's really fun with the ball's carrying there. I'll tell you what, that slow motion, you just hit pause and you hit the right arrow and it starts slowing it down frame by frame. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And by the way, the one-on-ones, that's always a good place to measure mental and physical toughness. Now, if you get the right matchup, there are times in training camp you're looking at one-on-ones. And for example, Trent Cole versus any veteran offensive tackle, Runyon, Harriman's, whatever, was not a good to watch because Trent Cole plays every snap in training camp like it's the Super Bowl. And, guys like Runyon and Todd, when they were getting up there, and even JP at times, they're not trying to get hurt in a one-on-one drill. So they'll get embarrassed by Trent Cole. They don't care. It's a one-on-one drill. They're not losing their job. But if you get the right type of player, usually a rookie who wants to prove himself, or a young kid or a Trent Cole type guy who just always goes balls to the wall against a guy like Dillard in there and Mailata, you'll get to see whether the toughness really comes out there. Because, you don't want to get some people. If you're Andre Dillard, you're not established like Harriman's or Trey or anybody. You're not trying to get owned in a one-on-one drill. You're trying to own somebody else. So and what you're fun to watch.
Right. What you're talking about there, and I've seen this in training camps in my tours around the league, like you'll see guys get housed, like it could be alignment, and they get discouraged and they shake their head and they're like, man, what happened on that play, man? I got to get myself together.
Who was it that got right? It was Dillard, right? Didn't he get run over by Sharif Miller a couple of times in camp?
Yes.
And that was like the first sign that maybe Dillard had to toughen up a little bit. I mean, Sharif Miller, he can't even play in the NFL, and he was running over Dillard.
He's been on 4 or 5 teams so far, so we'll see what happens. But that one we're looking forward to it, and also the backup jobs are fascinating. I can't believe I'm saying this. I should wash my mouth out, but it actually is going to be interesting because people are always looking to know how many players that
how many they're going to keep, whether they go 8, 9, or 10. Yeah, because they've been different every year. Yeah,
right. So Herbig, Dickerson, we know he's on the team, obviously.
Yeah,
but we have to see about his health. Opeta, Jariga, Owoshika, who's a kid they really like from University of Buffalo, who's a little bit undersized to play tackle, probably play guard. Matt Pryor, Raven Clark, Driscoll, Toth. Toth probably won't make it, but then you would ask this on probably the last show that we did. It was not the stuff with Cosell. How many linemen do they keep? This is going to be tough for them because they've had some of these guys that are undrafted free agents. Jariga, Opeta, Herbig. We'll get to him in a second. Who they like, and they like to see develop. The Eagles have had a good history of finding these undrafted free agents.
All right, listen, if Matt Pryor makes this team with all that they've added to, all right, that to me will be the equivalent of like how Vince Velasquez and Hector Neris keep coming back to the Phillies, even though Vince has given you some flashes this year, but the bottom line is he's Vince Velasquez, and Hector Neris is certainly Hector Neris.
Right. So what Jeff's saying, if you're not a Phillies fan, Vince Velasquez is basically a 6th pitcher of a 5-man staff.
Mm-hmm.
He's a utility guy. If you need him for long relief, he's your guy. If you need him to fill in, he's your guy. You don't want him as your 4th pitcher. That's a disgrace.
Right.
It shows you how bad the Phillies minor league system is. Whereas Pryor, at times, was surprising. I know Trey Thomas told us on our show last summer, and actually last fall, as a matter of fact, he was surprised when we put it on our show, that we heard he had a bad camp for 2.5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And Trey's like, man, I can't believe that. He was so great the previous season, or he was good. And Trey was right. There were times the previous season in 19 where you go, wow, the light's going on for him. But then the light went off and he didn't make it. So that's what you're talking about. If Pryor makes it, he was so disappointing last season. There's just no way he's making it, right?
Yeah, I can't imagine it. I can't imagine it being a good thing for the rest of the offensive line backups if Matt Pryor. I can't imagine a situation where Matt Pryor just outperformed all these other good backup offensive linemen and was back on the team. That's why it's more like Neris to me. It's like this guy is told on himself. We know what he is. He had like a couple of flashes here and there, like Neris has had, that made you think he might be inadequate to good backup, and then you realized over the long haul he is not. And so if he's back here because he's under contract, but if he's back on the team, it's probably not a good situation overall for the backups, just like it's Neris being the closer is not a good situation for the back end of the Phillies bullpen.
Right.
And now he's not the closer anymore. Well, at least at this moment, who knows? I mean,
I would have pulled my two payoff. Yes, if they would have done that. I'm like, if Neris went back and been the closer, and then obviously the Phillies are struggling having a closer. But Matt Pryor, look, the guy was a 6-round pick. 6-round picks, you hope sometime could be a good backup.
Yeah.
Raven Clark is there. Let me give you a note on his contract.
Okay. Is there guaranteed money in that?
There was actually something interesting for week 1. Let me see if I have to reopen this stupid file here. Hang on a second.
By the way, Jack Driscoll is a backup who I expect to. You mentioned Nate Herbig.
He's making it. He's definitely
Driscoll, of course, will make it. Landon Dickerson, of course, will make it. Can't wait to get into more conversations about whether or not Dickerson better profiles as a guard or a center. We're gonna have to talk to some linemen.
Oh, that's a tough one. All right. We'll get to that in a second. Raven Clark's contract. 1 year, $1.065 million is the total dollars. $990 salary. There's no guaranteed money, but they put in the first game roster bonus. If he's active, he gets $75,000. Okay, it's not a lot of money. It will not impact him making it.
Nick Mullen laughs at that contract.
Right. Nick Mullen's got.
He's like, I got $200,000 whether I'm on the team or not.
I know, but again, they're rewarding him a little bit if he's on the roster.
Mm-hmm. All right, interesting stuff.
So we look at that,
yeah, and no, I think we'll probably have some. We had some offensive line material last year. I thought that was pretty good on ITB with Trey and Todd Harriman, Jamal Jackson. I imagine we'll get something like that done again. But I'd love some offensive line expertise on this Landon Dickerson and where he best fits. I mean, obviously, if there's an injury at either one, he's going to play there to start off with. But I'm wondering where
ready. But again,
if he's ready,
we don't know when he's going to be ready. I mean, he's an absolute stud talent. He's a top 20 player just on tape study. Yep. This guy's a former tackle. He's a normally tall center. Typically, you don't want a center over 6'5" because they have to crouch down the way they have to play the position.
Right.
He was drafted to replace Kelsey, but again, and this is what you're alluding to, it's not out of the question in 2022 that's if Kelsey does not come back, that say Milo's the center, that Dickerson's the left guard. That's not out of the question. As Geoff just said, we're going to look into this. This won't be decided in several. This will take place. This is going to be a decision that will be made over a series of months, but someone will be looking into.
Excellent. All right, that will close the book on our offensive training camp battles to watch Thursday morning.
One thing. Just on the backup lineman.
Mm-hmm.
Herbig, as we were first reported, a month ago, lost 30 pounds.
Yes.
Look at his IG. He actually shows, and this plays into his losing weight. He looks like, and I know it's kind of a interesting clip on IG, but you can see like he's clearly working out. So I would just say this: the question going into training camp coming out is, how many backups do they keep? 3, which means 8 overall linemen, 4 or 5, as many as 10.
Mm-hmm.
Dickerson, Herbig. Now, Dickerson, it depends on what list they have him on to start training camp and if he's ready to go for the start of the season. But if he's on the active roster, Dickerson, not PUP or NFI, to start the season, it's Herbig, it's Dickerson is 7. Driscoll's 8. So they're definitely keeping at least 8. The question is, do they keep 9 or 10? So that, just to finish this off, that's the question. Again, training camp will write that story.
Absolutely. All right, that will finish the book on our offensive training camp battles preview. Like I said, next one will come out Thursday morning. We will go over the defensive battles. There are some really good ones there as well. And look forward to getting closer to training camp and really getting that hard news element back into ITB and then making some announcements down the road. All right. So that'll do it for this edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. Big thanks to our producer, Hunter Brody. Check him out on YouTube. His channel is called Sports Talk with Broads. He has a website, a new website called broadsmedia.com, features all his work. And you can find him on Twitter at Broads81. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.